You won't believe what just happened to me. Imagine getting a notice from your HOA saying you have to leave your own ranch. Like, pack up and get out. Sounds insane, right? That's exactly what I faced. The homeowners association tried to evict me, claiming I was breaking their rules. But here's the kicker. I actually own the land. And not just that, I own the building where their entire main office operates. Yeah, you've heard that right. For months, I thought this was just a simple disagreement over some property rules, but it quickly spiraled into something way bigger. The HOA, which is supposed to protect the community and its residents, suddenly became the biggest threat to my home and livelihood. They came knocking with legal threats and eviction notices, acting like I was some sort of trespasser. Meanwhile, I was standing there knowing the truth, that all the power was actually on my side. This isn't just a story about property or ownership. It's about standing up when you're cornered, about uncovering hidden truths, and about how the people who are supposed to support you can sometimes turn against you in the worst way. It's also a reminder that sometimes the biggest battles are fought right at home, in places we think are safe. But here's the part that really shocked me. When I dug deeper, I found things about that HOA's own property and management that no one expected. Things that could change everything. The question is, will this story end with me getting kicked out, or will I turn the tables in a way no one saw coming? Stay with me because the next part is going to reveal some serious twists. This fight is far from over. To understand how this all started, you've got to know a little about the ranch and the HOA itself. The ranch has been in my family for years. It's not just a piece of land. It's where I grew up, where memories were made, and where I thought I'd always be safe. When the HOA was created, it was supposed to bring order and help maintain the community, but somewhere along the way, things went off the rails. At first, the issues were small, some disagreements over fences, parking spots, and landscaping rules. I tried to work with them, hoping to keep the peace, but it felt like the HOA board had their own agenda. They started pushing rules that seemed unfair, and whenever I asked questions, I got vague or dodgy answers. Then the eviction notice came out of nowhere. They claimed I was violating certain bylaws and that I had to remove structures and even leave the property. That's when I started looking deeper into the HOA's records and deeds. What I found blew me away. Not only did I legally own my ranch, but the HOA's main office building actually sat on a plot of land that I had full rights to. Somehow, this was never publicly known or disclosed. It was like a secret buried in the paperwork, hidden behind layers of confusing language and old contracts. It made me wonder, if I own the building they use as their headquarters, how can they claim authority over me? The more I dug, the more suspicious things became. There were inconsistencies in the HOA's property maps, unexplained fees, and decisions that seemed designed to push me out. It felt like they were trying to rewrite history, to erase my ownership piece by piece. But why? And who was really pulling the strings behind the scenes? This wasn't just a fight over property anymore. It was turning into a battle against something bigger, something almost like a cover-up. And now, with the eviction looming, I'm stuck trying to figure out how to protect what's mine before it's too late. But the deeper I go, the more complicated and dangerous this whole thing feels. The question is, will I find a way to fight back, or is this just the beginning of a bigger storm? As the eviction deadline got closer, the pressure kept mounting. I wasn't just dealing with the HOA board anymore. There were neighbors whispering, some even siding with the HOA, convinced that I was the problem. It was like suddenly I was the outsider in a community I'd called home all my life. The tension wasn't just legal, it was personal. Friends I thought I could count on were unsure where they stood, and every conversation seemed to carry an edge of doubt or fear. One of the most confusing parts was how the HOA justified their actions. They kept pointing to these vague community standards and safety concerns, but no one could give me clear examples. I asked for meetings, tried to sit down with the board, but they either ignored me or gave me scripted answers. Behind the scenes, though, I started hearing rumors about a developer interested in buying up land in the area. Could that be why they wanted me out? Was this fight really about my ranch, or was it about what my land was worth to someone else? Meanwhile, I had to deal with the legal notices piling up and the threat of losing access to parts of the property I'd maintained for years. The thought of being forced off my own land felt surreal, like a nightmare that just wouldn't end. I reached out to a few lawyers, but the costs were mounting, and the HOA seemed to have deep pockets and endless patience. There was also a surprising subplot developing. Some of the HOA's own members started reaching out quietly, suggesting there were divisions within the board itself. Some didn't agree with the eviction attempt, but were too afraid to speak up openly. It became clear that this wasn't a simple black and white issue. There were hidden alliances, secrets, and maybe even corruption. Every new piece of information added more layers to the story, making me wonder, who could I really trust? And what was the real endgame behind this aggressive move? The clock was ticking, and with each passing day, the fight to hold onto my ranch felt more like walking through a minefield where one wrong step could mean losing everything. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure kept tightening like a noose. Every morning, I woke up wondering if today would be the day the eviction notice turned into a reality. The HOA wasn't backing down. Instead, they seemed more determined than ever, sending letters, hiring lawyers, and even posting warnings on the property. It felt like they were trying to push me out by wearing me down, hoping I'd give up before the fight even reached the courtroom. At the same time, the whispers from neighbors grew louder. Some started avoiding me, others looked at me with suspicion. The ranch that was once a place of peace now felt like a battleground. I couldn't help but feel betrayed, like the community was turning its back on me. But there were still a few who stood by my side quietly, offering support but warning me to be careful. They said the HOA had powerful connections, and that this wasn't just about land, it was about control. Then came the moment when I discovered something that shook me to the core. Hidden in the legal documents was a clause about a secret agreement tied to the land the HOA's main building stood on. It hinted at plans that could completely change the ownership landscape, plans that were never made public. If those plans went through, it could mean losing everything, not just my ranch, but potentially the building I owned as well. I knew I had to act fast, but every step forward felt like walking deeper into a trap. The board was closing ranks, the legal threats became more aggressive, and the developer rumors turned into serious conversations behind closed doors. I could feel the walls closing in, and the weight of what was at stake pressed down harder every day. The community meetings became heated, with accusations flying and tensions reaching a boiling point. I faced the board directly for the first time, but instead of answers, I got more questions, and threats disguised as warnings. The question wasn't if I'd lose my ranch anymore, but how. And with the eviction deadline looming, the suspense was unbearable. Would I find a way to stop this? Or was this the beginning of the end? The next few days would be crucial, and everything was about to come to a head. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, the story took another sharp turn. Late one night, while going through some old property records and emails, I uncovered something that made my blood run cold. There was a hidden clause in the HOA's founding documents, something that no one had mentioned before, that gave them the power to seize land under certain community interest conditions. And guess what? The way they were pushing the eviction, they were trying to claim exactly that. It wasn't just about annoying rules or personal grudges anymore. The HOA was using legal loopholes to try and take control of my land, including the part with their own main building on it. That realization hit me like a punch. The very organization threatening to kick me out was standing on land I owned, yet they were using their own bylaws to try and strip me of my rights. It felt like a twisted game of power and control, with me caught right in the middle. But the twist didn't stop there. A neighbor I thought was neutral reached out privately, saying they had proof that some board members were secretly working with outside developers. The developers wanted to buy up parcels in the area, and my ranch was the biggest obstacle. Apparently, the eviction was part of a bigger plan to clear the land for a lucrative project, one that would change the entire community forever. The more I learned, the clearer it became that this fight was about much more than just property lines or HOA rules. It was about money, influence, and greed. The community meetings turned from tense to explosive, with accusations flying and alliances breaking down. I was being painted as a troublemaker, while those backing the HOA acted like they were protecting everyone's best interests. But behind closed doors, the battle was ruthless and personal. Every legal move, every threat, every secret meeting was raising the stakes higher. Now, with this new information, the pressure to fight back was stronger than ever. But how do you battle an organization that seems to have all the cards, including the land you thought was yours? The fight for my ranch was about to reach its breaking point, and I had no idea what would happen next. The day of the big hearing finally arrived, and everything came to a head. I stood before the HOA board, my lawyers by my side, armed with the proof I had uncovered: the ownership documents, the hidden clauses, and the emails linking board members to the developers. The room was packed with neighbors, some watching silently, others whispering behind their hands. I could feel the weight of every eye on me, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. As I laid out the facts, it became clear that the HOA's eviction attempt was built on shaky ground. The legal loophole they tried to use to claim my land was outdated and had been misapplied. More importantly, the board's own building sat squarely on land I owned, and their claim to authority was seriously compromised by the evidence I presented. The secret agreements and developer deals exposed a hidden agenda that the community needed to know about. But just when I thought victory was within reach, the unexpected happened. One of the board members, the one who had quietly opposed the eviction behind closed doors, stood up and shocked everyone. He revealed that some members of the HOA had been acting without full board approval, essentially going rogue. Worse, he confessed that the developer deal was closer to completion than I realized, and if it went through, it could legally override even the strongest ownership claims. The room erupted in chaos, accusations flying as trust shattered. It was a reminder that even with the truth on your side, battles like this aren't just about facts. They're about power and influence that don't play fair. But here's the kicker. That same board member handed me a set of documents, proof of illegal actions by the rogue board members, enough to force a reset of the HOA's leadership and stop the developer's plan, at least for now. It wasn't a clean win, and the fight wasn't over, but it was a turning point. I had survived the eviction attempt, protected my ranch, and exposed a web of corruption that no one expected. Just when I thought I could finally breathe, a new email popped up in my inbox, marked urgent. The game wasn't over yet. That urgent email changed everything. It wasn't just a message, it was a new threat. The developers, it seemed, weren't ready to give up. They had found a loophole of their own, one that could bypass even the HOA's shaky leadership. Suddenly, the fight for my ranch felt like it had entered a new, more dangerous phase. But after everything I'd been through, I wasn't about to back down. In the weeks that followed, the community started to shift. The truth about the HOA's rogue board members and the secret developer deals came out in the open, sparking outrage and forcing a full investigation. Neighbors who had been hesitant began to support me, realizing that this fight wasn't just about one ranch, but about fairness and transparency for everyone. The new leadership that took over the HOA promised real change, and the developers' plans were put on hold, at least for now. Looking back, I realized this wasn't just a legal battle or a fight over property. It was a test of resilience and standing up for what's right, even when the odds feel stacked against you. Owning the land and the building gave me a legal edge, but it was the support of people willing to listen and stand with me that made the biggest difference. The experience taught me to never take your home or community for granted. Sometimes, the biggest threats come from where you least expect them, even from the people who say they're there to protect you. But it also showed me that with patience, persistence, and the truth on your side, you can fight back and win. So, this story isn't just about one ranch or one eviction notice. It's about fighting for what belongs to you. exposing hidden truths, and never giving up, no matter how tough the battle gets. And who knows? The next chapter might still be unfolding. But for now, my ranch is safe, and that feels like a victory worth holding on to.